What is up, everybody? Dan and the Fireman here. Today we're going to be talking about some new riders. We're going to talk about some experienced riders making mistakes. But the whole point of this is to learn about what happened. I mean, we're going to figure out, was it the conditions involved? Was it the car that caused the problem? Was it the motorcycle itself the problem? Or was it the motorcycle rider having a lapse in judgment or just no experience in this situation? And that is what we're going to be doing when we go over these 5 motorcycle crashes of May 2020. The point is to learn. The point is to be better than this. And then the point is not to make fun of or antagonize any of these situations, because we didn't go through it, they did, and we're going to learn from it. So that's the beauty of this. So let's go ahead and watch all 5 of these. But remember, timestamps are in the description. So if you want to skip around, please do so. Also, if you notice the little red bar, there's little slash marks. That means you can actually click on those and they're like the timestamps. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into this first one and figure out what happened.
That's why I'm riding in the back. In case Alvaro takes it too crazy, the other guy falls for him. And then he went down.
So if you notice at the beginning, he talks about being in the back because this is a relatively new rider. He wants to see if there's anything that happens or if he crashes, all these different things. So this tells me that this is a group ride, more experienced in the back than the person in front. And that's perfectly fine. You can do that. You can go into the front as an experienced rider. You can go into the back as an experienced rider. It's actually good to do both. So that way the new rider can actually see what's a good line, what's a good entry speed, and then also being in the back so you can see what happens when it comes to the newer rider. As a good mentor, you need to do both. You need to be super safe, do sub-maximal riding to where, you know, if this person can handle a curve, well, let's go ahead and do an easier one until you're really good, and then we'll move on to these other ones. So we can talk more about that during the live streams when we do Q&As and a few other things. So let's go ahead and move forward. This is where he talks about, you know, I'm in the back for these certain reasons. Remember, original videos are linked in the description. So right here, this is where it all starts to happen. And typically what happens in cornering is that the rider will go too fast, and that's typically the problem. That's the problem. So going too fast in the corner is definitely going to be a possible factor in this situation. Now, too fast for this rider might not be too fast for the rider in the back, the one with the camera. So it's all relative. So that's why I always tell people to ride their own ride when they're in a group ride, because your max rep for bench press is different than my max rep for bench press. So if we ever go to the gym, I'm not going to try to do what you do, or you're not going to try to do what I do. We're going to do our own workout. When it comes to group riding like this, you ride your own ride. You ride your speed, you ride to your skill level, I'll ride to my skill level, and if mine is way more than yours, just like maybe the one right here says he's in the back for, then he's going to go ahead and go to the pace of the newest rider or the least experienced rider. And that's how group rides should be. But to go back to what happened here is that this person probably went a little too fast for the corner. So how do we prevent that? Well, it's as simple as slow look, press, and roll. The MSF teaches that. A lot of motorcycle institutions teach that. And what that means is that you're going to slow down before the turn. You're going to look where you want to go. So you're looking for the ground for hazards, but you're also looking at your exit. You're not looking down at your hands or handlebars. You're looking at where you want to go. You're going to go ahead and press on the handlebars to initiate counter steering. And I talk about counter steering quite a bit on this channel, so definitely you can check it out, but there's a lot of YouTube videos on how to do it. And then you're going to roll on the throttle on the way out. Okay, you can give it a little bit of maintenance throttle, and you'll learn that in class, but when the handlebars and the front tire are pointed out of the curve, like you're done, that's when you can start rolling on the throttle. So the biggest portion here is to slow down beforehand, and then you can always add more later. So that's the biggest thing here, is that don't go too fast into it, because it's a lot harder to slow it down in a curve than it is to give it just a little bit more. So the first few times you do any type of curve riding or mountain riding or whatever, take the first dozen or so nice and easy, nice and slow, and then realize, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Give yourself a little confidence, but always be prepared for something like this. So he's going to go a little bit too wide. He's going to put his feet down. That's not a good thing. That's a panic, which is perfectly fine. You know, it's a panic. You don't want to panic, but if you do, just realize why. New rider, panicked. So maybe I need to be more experienced. I'll panic less. And this right here is very good that he was able to get up and walk around and do everything. So having full gear is also very important. I would recommend a full face, not the 3/4 that he has here, because you don't want to rip your face off. I've seen it. But he does have some gear everywhere else. He has a jacket. It looks like they're regular pants. They could be moto pants. They're actually doing pretty good with new pants nowadays that you can't even tell. And I can't tell what kind of boots he has. So he might have full gear, but it's a lot better than flip-flops and sandals that you typically see in a lot of more hotter climates. And if you want to know how to get full gear or be super protective in hot climates, I did make a video right here somewhere on the screen. Please check it out. It's down in the description. It's going to help you out tremendously because I don't want you to be riding around in hot weather with nothing. So check it out, see if you like it, but then come back. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2. So this one's a little unique because he actually did his own review of his videos. I have talked to him in emails, and at the end of the day, I wanted to say this huge thing about it, but I want you to check out his videos. They talk about all the injuries he had, which are pretty extensive, and they also talk about how he made the mistake, why he made the mistake, and this is the thing. He's learning from it, but he also has injuries. So how about we learn from it and we try not to get injuries ourselves? And that's the point of an after action review. So we're going to move forward just a little bit. He says his front camera died, and I've had that happen. It sucks. You know, sometimes, I mean, especially with the Hero 4, I've had that and they die quick. Anyways, he's moving on and he's going to go ahead and look for a place to pull over. So we're on asphalt right here, and now we're going to transition to something off the road. So what is off the road? What is that surface that we're going on? And this happens quite a bit, whether you're doing exactly what he's doing or you're just going to pull over because, yeah, I'm going to take a drink or I got a cell phone and somebody's calling me, I'm going to pull over and talk on the phone. And this can easily happen and it's not good. And I know I chuckled a little bit, but we talked about it and he's doing fine. He's doing a lot better now anyways. So if you take a quick look, you see that there's a lot of gravel. Okay, so it's a lot of gravel. So it's the shoulder of this road, and it's not paved. And the transition from paved road to gravel is going to make a huge difference in your traction. So your traction is what your tires do basically to keep them on the road. And all traction is friction. And how do you get friction? So you see how we're doing this whole why, how do things work? Friction works by weight. So if you ever want, you can practice it here. I talk about it in my braking video, but if you want to practice it, put your hand on the desk, go ahead and slide it across the desk. You see how it's nice and smooth and you see how it's just kind of like sliding across. Well, I'm not putting any weight on it, but if I put any weight on my other hand, and you can do this on the table, you see how it's like almost connected. And if I put a lot of weight on it, it's connected now. So you can actually do that with the desk or with your foot on the ground. And that's what a front tire, rear tire, any tires, traction, friction, that's how it works. So when you transition from a lot of weight on asphalt and you have good traction, good mechanical traction, it's like grippy, and then you transition to and then you transition to gravel where it's like smooth and it's like moves around. It's not necessarily trying to give any weight. So if you put weight on gravel, it just spreads out. It moves everywhere. It slips and slides, and that's what happens. So you have a lot of weight already on the asphalt, transition to gravel, boom, it dumps. So how do we fix that? You have to go a lot slower. Okay, so there's a lot of weight on that front tire, or both tires, and if you go slower, it doesn't need so much because acceleration, deceleration, and turning utilizes traction in order to handle it. I know this is a lot of information. Trust me, this is why I do a lot of other videos. What's happening here is that you need to reduce your acceleration, reduce your movement, reduce your speed so that it can utilize more traction for the transition. Okay, so it's a lot of information. I understand it, but the thing is, you're going to want to slow it down before you transition from one road surface to the other. And we'll actually talk about it a little bit more in another video. So go ahead and skip over. This guy's doing fine, but that's the biggest issue here. So the factor is traction issue, maybe loss of judgment of maybe I should have slowed down beforehand. But either way, we're going to learn from this. And the biggest thing here is make sure you slow down when you transition from one surface to the next. Okay? All right, moving on. If you've been around the channel for long enough, you're gonna know the awareness code chart that I use. I use white, yellow, orange, red, and brown stage. I kind of talked about it earlier. But what you should be doing in a heavy traffic area, especially with the intersection coming up, you need to be in orange stage. This is a hazardous situation. You perceived it and you need to be ready to act. And then hopefully go into red stage where you're utilizing a good swerve or good braking. You don't want to go into brown where you panic and do a panic brake or just slam the brakes or slide down or layer down, all that stuff. So that's not what you want to do. So when we go forward on here is that you need to be really situationally aware. I see an intersection right here. I'm going to be in orange stage. That means I'm covering the brakes and I'm getting ready to do something because I don't feel comfortable. So that's where you kind of feel panicked. You feel a little bit paranoid. Another thing that I like to tell my students, or I like to just the people that I mentor, is that you need to have good vision. So good vision is going to help you out quite a bit, because if you can see far ahead or you can see the hazard ahead of time, whatever it is, you're going to be able to react with better skills. You're able to react quicker. You're able to react way sooner than you typically would. You don't want to react when the hazard is right in front of your face. You want to react when the hazard is far away, and then you are more prepared. So right here, you definitely want to be able to see very well, which he does. He can actually see pretty good, but you also want a good space cushion. You also want not just the visual distance, you want the physical distance too. So moving forward just a little bit more, you see some brake lights right here, and that is going to be the problem. Okay, so there's the brake lights. You can barely see it. So I would actually move off a little bit more to the right like he originally was about 50 frames ago. And that way you're able to react to the vehicle in front of the vehicle in front of you. See what I mean? That is something that I do every single time I ride, and it allows me to see way ahead. It allows me to know what's happening before this red vehicle knows. So moving forward just a little bit more. So this person is applying the brakes. Why would they be applying the brakes? This is where you start doing this investigative work. Well, typically when people apply the brakes is because they're going to make a decision. Are they turning left, turning right? Is there somebody in front of them? If they weren't going to do that, they would just keep going straight. There would be no brakes. So the reason why I believe that there are brakes, and we've seen the video already, is that this right here, you see the arrow turning right and you see the arrow going forward. Well, more than likely, the reason why the person's applying the brakes is that they're going to turn right. So this is what's going to happen right here. But since this car driver wasn't paying attention, they slammed those brakes. They slammed them hard because they weren't looking far ahead. They were paying attention to what's right in front of them. And this motorcyclist was paying attention to right in front of him. And the person behind the motorcyclist is paying attention to the motorcyclist. You see how it cascades? Leapfrog your vision. Leapfrog it so you can see super far. That way you can react to the car way ahead, not this car. And that's going to be the biggest problem here. So they can't brake in time because it's like this cascade domino effect of I brake, okay, now I brake, now I brake, and it's just all over the place. So right here, this is why you need to see, is that you can possibly swerve out of the situation. You can swerve right and come back in your lane while applying a little bit of brake pressure right here and then a little bit of brake pressure after the swerve. I talk about how to do swerves in a previous video. Please check it out. It's going to help you out with your fundamental skills. It's a great way to practice, and I do it in a parking lot, and I also do it out on the street, so you can just do it anywhere you want. So right here, swerve to the right, swerve back into the lane. But the biggest thing to prevent a lot of this is having good vision, good following distance, and then staying situationally aware by seeing and leapfrogging the car in front of you. Let's move on to the next one.
9. Oh my God. Oh God.
So this is going to be a lot like that transition from the road to the gravel, but it's going to be from one road surface to the next, with a little bit of gravel too, or a little bit of debris. And this is the same concept. You need to slow it down. You need to go over it as straight as possible and then move on with your day. But that's not what's happening here. If you actually watch the original video, he's going pretty fast. He let this person go in front. This person's turning right. I think they're following. And this is what is exactly happening. As soon as we transition from right here, and you can actually see it. You see the debris, you see all that stuff. Why does that happen? Well, typical water runoff, it's going to ruin the road. It's going to move debris everywhere. So I actually, before I go into this area, I will slow down and do a quick look and then go over as straight as possible and then accelerate after the fact. Just because it's a turn doesn't mean you can haul ass around the turn. Every turn I go into, I double check. Is the road surface good? Is it good? Perfect. I'm still going to take it about 20 miles an hour, maybe a little bit less, especially if it's a bad spot. If it's a bad area or a bad gravel like this, I'll go 10 miles an hour maybe, and then go over it nice and easy like I'm walking on a tightrope, and then I'm going to go ahead and accelerate slowly out and then pick up speed after the fact. I can always catch up to this person because we're on a motorcycle. So right here, going a little too fast. I understand it says second gear, but you know what? You can still go pretty fast in second gear. As soon as he goes over that, you see how it dumps down? So as soon as he hits that gravel, it starts to fall down. So just like earlier when I talked about acceleration, deceleration, and turning, they utilize traction in order to do that. Right now, what this motorcycle rider is doing is accelerating and turning, so utilizing a ton of traction. Well, guess what removes traction from your tire? Gravel. So if you're doing 100% acceleration and turning, and then gravel takes just 5% of your traction away, and all you have left is 95%, and you have 100% utilization, well, that little extra 5% just caused you to lose all of it because you overfilled the cup. So what's happening right here is that he's utilizing as much traction as possible, and then that gravel took out way too much, and it's going to cause him to dump the bike. So there's that transition. So how do we prevent that? Like I just said, acceleration, deceleration, and turning utilizes traction. Well, if we're going to go over something that's going to take away my traction, how about I just take away some of my speed, or I take away some of my turning, because I got to give some of it to gravel. So if I reduce my speed, there you go, I just gave a little bit more to gravel. Well, how about I go over it as straight as possible? Okay, well, there you go. I removed some turning out of that. That right there is where you need to start realizing, hey guys, I'm going to slow it down around these turns, especially if we're going to be transitioning. So right here, the transition in an intersection, you gotta just slow it down, go over it nice and easy, and then go, especially if there's a ton of gravel, grass clippings, whatever it is. Also, sun could easily be a factor in this. Maybe the rider just didn't even see it because the sun was in his eyes. And that right there could be a huge problem when it comes to the sun, the condition, the water on the road, gravel on the road, the other vehicles. All these factors can play into a crash or a close call. So reduce as many as possible. We can't change what the sun's doing to our face, but we can change what our hand is doing and how we're turning. Very important. Let's move on to the next one. So we just talked about the sun being in our eyes. Well, guess what? This one, there's no sun in our eyes. We just have a bunch of different lights that are causing some problems. Also, we have people that can't see very well, and we also have people allowing people to merge and get in our path of travel. So there's a lot of patterns in this situation, and we're going to go over some of them. So moving forward a little bit, so you see all how blinding it is. It's so blinding. I can't see anything. With that said, if it's blinding, like if you have sun in your eyes, what should you do? Roll off the throttle. Just roll off the throttle, especially with the intersection coming up. We talked about intersections, orange stage. You should already be rolling the throttle, covering those brakes, getting ready. But definitely roll off the throttle if you can't see because it's too bright or it's too dark. So that is very important. But also, if you see, and we're going to skip the car right here. So let's pretend the car is not there. If you see these two cars and there's a gap and there's a business right there, more than likely they're letting somebody in. So you always have to start playing that investigative thinking right there is, you know, why are these two cars stopped when there's a gap in front of them? Maybe they should be moving forward. They're letting somebody in. That right there, burn this pattern into your brain because this right here happens quite a bit and it does get a lot of motorcyclists. If you ever see two vehicles, one vehicle, whatever, kind of having this huge gap and then all of a sudden it's next to a gas station or a business, they're probably letting somebody through. Roll off the throttle, get prepped and ready just in case the dum-dum like this car right here wasn't paying attention. Okay, this car is not paying attention, neither were we though. We're barely reaching for that front brake right here. Is that enough total stopping distance? No, it's not. You barely perceived it right now, barely reacted right now. We haven't even started braking distance. This is why you need to see those patterns well ahead of time. Your fundamental skill will not save you in this situation outside of maybe a swerve to the left last second, but the braking's not going to work. We need to seek out and recognize these hazards before they come to us or before we get to them. So right here, definitely keep an eye out for vehicles stopped well before they should be. And also, we were coming up to an intersection, so we should have been slowing down anyways. We should have been covering the brakes. We should have been prepped and ready to stop. And so our brake hand should be utilized right now. But that's not what happened. We got clipped right there. Didn't even get a chance to swerve. We didn't get a chance to brake. Probably didn't even see it. Why? Nighttime, maybe blinded, maybe not situationally aware, maybe, we don't know. But there's so many factors involved, and he's tried his best to keep it up, and he actually did okay. And hopefully he's not severely injured, but mechanism injury probably is going to be pretty bad when it comes to that right knee because he did clip that vehicle. Guys, the whole point of all of this is to make sure that we are being situationally aware and seeing these patterns ahead of time. We do this live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays on this channel. We have great discussions out on the Discord. We have free resources to train out on the DDFMcrew.com. We have everything here. This is the best damn online motorcycle community in the world, and we're going to be doing more and more and more and more and more. If you would like to join up, if you would like to be a part of it, the Discord is absolutely free. But if you'd like to support what we do here and get a uniform, get one. There's t-shirts and everything like that. Or just click that join button right next to the subscribe button. It's $2 a month, but it helps support the channel so very much. And I would appreciate it, and I'd love to have you here. With that said, I hope you guys ride safe, be safe, and I'll catch you for June. Wait, it's already June, isn't it? Yeah. Anyways, I'll see you soon.